Hello everybody, it's been a long time since we've seen each other and I've been pretty busy, as I say in pretty much all of my videos. I also say that I'm going to start posting more content up, but now I'm going to take the approach of I'm going to post when I can. So I'm not going to promise like every week or anything because I've not been following through with that and I apologize for that. But I'm going to try to start posting more often. Not going to make any commitments though. There's a lot of shoes updating though, coming up pretty soon here. So I'm going to start dropping all my shoe knowledge on you guys for the next couple of months hopefully. So we have a lot of shoes updating in February and then also in March. So that kind of brings me into the topic for this video, and that is going to be the New Balance 1080, which updated, I believe, February 1st, if I remember it. I know we just got it at the Lone Tree Roost, so we now have the version 11 as opposed to the New Balance version 10, or sorry, restart. We now have the 1080 version 11 as opposed to the New Balance 1080 version 10. So not a whole lot of changes in the two models, but there are some pretty big changes for some individuals who maybe did not like the 10. Maybe it will kind of sway your opinion and make you like the 11 a little bit more. I have the 10 right now. I've not purchased the 11 yet. I'm kind of doing, I guess this is not really a review, it's more of like a preview, kind of spec. I'll go over all the specs and kind of what I think of the shoe based on my run specialty and running experience in general. So that's what this video is going to be about basically. So it's not going to be a review like I've run 100 miles in the shoe or whatever. But I have run and I have used the 1080 version 10, and it's not too much different, as I was saying, to the version 11. So I kind of go over everything, kind of what has changed in the two models, and kind of compare the two models to each other. So yeah, I don't physically have the 1080 version 11 because I'm not doing this in the store. If you can't tell, I'm actually doing this at my house. So I'm going to be kind of going over the things without having to shoot in my hand, but I did get some cool B-roll shots, or at least I think they're cool, so hopefully you guys enjoy them as well. But let's get started. All right, so first and foremost, if you're not very familiar with the 1080, it is a high cushion neutral shoe, and what that means is that the 1080 has got obviously a lot of cushion. It's a very soft, plush feeling shoe, and the neutral shoe just means it doesn't have any extra medial or inside of the foot stability. So like in through the arch, doesn't have any extra structure there to kind of prevent the motion of like overpronation, for example. I would recommend always getting fitted and making sure that you know what structure you kind of fall into. But if you're somebody who needs a little bit of support or stability on that medial side of the foot or inside of the foot, then you probably want to veer away from the shoe. But again, go to your run specialty store, get fitted, know what shoe's gonna work best for you. There are a bunch of different categories, and even the stability categories. Like there's light stability, moderate stability, high stability. Even if you're like, oh, I definitely overpronate, I wear out on the inside of my shoe when I'm wearing a neutral shoe, you want to make sure you get that checked out, because there are a bunch of different types of stability. Even within stability, there's a bunch of different types, and even a bunch of different types of shoes in generals and lasts and shapes of shoes. So definitely go there, get it checked out. If you're wearing insoles, it can change the shoe you're wearing as well. So by any means, don't just think this video is going to tell you everything you need to know about the 1080 and that you'll know that you can go into it based on this video. But yeah, go get fitted. Closest run specialty store. And when it's in Colorado, visit Runners Roost Lone Tree, because that's where I'm at. So yeah, let's kind of jump right in and kind of talk about the shoe a little bit more. So basically, the 1080 is a high cushion shoe. So you're looking at a stack height. So stack height is going to be the amount of foam underneath the foot. So stack height in the heel is going to be 30 millimeters, and then in the toe is going to be 22 millimeters. And what that means is there's going to be an 8 millimeter drop, so the heel is going to sit 8 millimeters above the toe or the forefoot. Kind of an important thing, I guess, to consider for most people. I guess if you're more in a minimal shoe, I feel like when you're in a high cushion shoe, it's pretty standard to have that lower drop, just because you have so much cushion underneath your foot that it doesn't really matter as much. The drop doesn't really matter as much. So I'm not going to try to break this down completely, but basically the lower the drop, the more stress on the hamstrings and the calves, and then the higher the drop, the more stress on the knees. But with this shoe, I feel like you're not going to really notice it on the calves and the hamstrings, because standard drop is going to be normally 10 or 12, and this is an 8 millimeter drop. I feel like it's pretty standard amongst all high cushion shoes. The cushioning they use in the shoe, so in the midsole of the shoe, is going to be their Fresh Foam X, which is basically their fancier version of Fresh Foam, which is a little less dense, lighter foam. For people who are maybe a little bit heavier set, this is probably not going to be good for you because you want something a little bit more firm, not as soft, plush feeling. I mean, you can definitely get by with this kind of shoe, but I see people who are a little bit heavier set, maybe like a really muscular dude or something coming in. They're going to kind of be crushing the shoe. I mean, normally it's going to be in like the outside of the shoe, and you can kind of just see them already like wearing it down very quickly. I feel like the shoe doesn't last very long if you're a little bit heavier set, but if you're a little bit lighter set, then I feel like the shoe lasts a little bit longer with all that. I mean, it kind of makes sense with any shoe, but this one really breaks down, I feel like, if you're not a lighter set person. So definitely something to keep in mind if you're looking for something that's going to last. If you're looking for something that's going to be super comfortable, this is a very comfortable shoe. I mean, with the high stack height, less dense foam, really gives you a lot of cushion, a lot of like that plush, cushiony feel to the shoe. They also have their Ortholite Insoles in these shoes, which is a lot of high cushion shoes are kind of going towards those Ortholite insoles. So basically, the Ortholite insoles kind of have this blue greenish texture for most of them. If you're in a insole and you flip it around, or sock liner, sorry, maybe not, I shouldn't say insole, sock liner. If you flip that sock liner around, you're gonna see the bottom of it. If it's like a white material and it's like very smooth feeling and not kind of like a fibrous feeling blue or green material in most shoes, then that's actually not an Ortholite insole. So an Ortholite insole doesn't break down very quickly, so it stays very cushiony for a long time. Doesn't kind of like get imprinted and compacted down like the white material does. So it's just something to keep in mind if you really are a stickler for your sock liners. But most of the cushioning doesn't actually come from the sock liner; it comes from the shoe itself. But again, the shoe has a lot of cushioning, so nothing to worry about really there. All right, kind of talking about the last of the two shoes. They're pretty much identical to each other, and even the midsole's identical, the outsole's identical, as you guys can kind of see from some of these clips. The 1080 version 10 and the 1080 version 11 are very similar in terms of everything, in terms of like structure, and the main update's going to be on that upper mesh. But before I go on upper mesh, let's talk a little bit about maybe insoles if you were to slide them into the shoes, or orthotics. I don't recommend this shoe at all for orthotics or insoles. If your orthotic or insole is even overcorrecting you slightly, I feel like you're just going to crush the outside of the shoe because of the soft foam. Plus the soft foam, if you're wearing orthotics or insoles, I feel like is not a very good option because normally you're wearing those to give you a little more structure to your foot, and this shoe does not offer that structure because you're going to be going all over the place. And then also looking at the last of the shoe, basically the shape of the shoe. If you flip the shoe over, I mean, we don't have a very linear last, which we want with insoles and orthotics. We don't want the arch to be narrowing up. We don't want the toes to be kind of curving inwards or towards the medial side of curving in medially. That is what I'm looking for. We don't want the toes curving in medially. That is not a good thing for insoles or orthotics. They just don't fit nicely in there. They don't sit down flat in the shoe. I mean, it kind of makes sense if you flip your orthotic around and kind of look at that, or your insole. You're going to see that's very linear lasted or very straight. I mean, that arch isn't curving in. You don't see that. You see that it actually stays, if you draw a line through the heel, into the midfoot, into the toes, it's going to be a very straight line. And you want to match that with your shoe. This is also better for people with a flatter arch. If you have a higher arch, this shoe works great. But if you, actually not too high of an arch, I'll get into earlier, but, or earlier, not earlier, later. Man, I'm kind of rusty, guys. Bear with me here. All right, so yeah, I mean, if you have a flatter arch, typically you want a wider arch section in the shoe. So basically that allows your arch to sit fully onto the foam instead of hanging over the side of the foam and kind of pressing on that mesh. So some things to keep in mind as we kind of wrap up our midsole and outsole. I mean, the outsole, if I just hit that briefly, it's gonna be the blown rubber, same thing as it was in the version 10. Not a full sole blown rubber, not the silicone rubber that's going to be a little bit slick but more durable. This stuff's going to be pretty tacky, I feel like, but also not as durable. But normally your rubber is not the first thing to wear out. It's going to be the foam is going to be the first thing to wear out in shoes. And in terms of life of this shoe, I feel like it does not last super long. I mean, it lasts a good amount. I mean, it's a $150 shoe is the price point of it, by the way, if you guys didn't know. But it lasts pretty good for like overall, like 100, if you look at the standard price point of like 100, 110 to $170 for shoes, it lasts a good amount of time, but I feel like it's not as good as some of the other $150 price point shoes. Oh, and by the way, if you guys don't know, I always recommend to replace your shoes when the foam is done. So the foam is done, that means the structure's gone, and the foam kind of offers all that structure underneath your foot. So how you can really tell, if you can flex a shoe and bend it all the way in half, then the foam is shot. And if you try to flex that shoe and it's a little bit harder to do, bend in half, and you press in the shoe and it doesn't give too much, then that means your shoe is probably still good, but the foam, if it's given quite a bit and the foam is definitely allowing you to kind of flex a shoe easily, then your shoe's done, time to replace your shoes. It's a good way to tell without actually tracking your mileage, and it can be different for everybody in terms of like how many miles you get out of a shoe. So, and then if you're walking and running, it can change as well. Even just standing the shoe can wear it out. All right, moving on now. As I finally moving on to the upper. The upper, they have their hypo knit upper. So what does that mean? That means it's a kind of a knit upper like a lot of other companies are going with, but it's kind of New Balance's upper, which is the hypo knit. What that means is it's going to be a very breathable upper. It stretches quite a bit actually. Same with the version 10. The version 10 stretched quite a bit. But this one is a lot more breathable. If you're looking at this, you can see like my fingers through the mesh here, and then also like in the 1080 you can still see my fingers, but the 1080 version 10 you can still see my fingers, but they're not as pronounced and it's not as see-through. This is way more breathable. I really like that for like a hotter conditions, hotter weather. For winter snow and everything like that, not ideal. But if you're in one of those places where there's a lot more, it's very humid or very hot, awesome shoe because of this hypo knit upper. Also, another thing they changed through the midfoot, the version 10, people complained about the constrictiveness of the midfoot of this shoe. So they kind of pressed on the top of their foot or their instep. So they really changed that, and they've kind of added more volume to this upper. So it's really nice. It gives you a lot more room. I don't really have this problem. I have a pretty low volume foot in general. So I never really felt that, never really understood, I guess, what people were complaining about, but my fiance complained about in the version 10. You'd assume, since they add more volume to it, that you're going to have a little bit more, a little bit less constrictive and a little bit more room in there for that midfoot. Now, kind of moving into kind of right next to the midfoot, we're talking about the heel collar. One thing I did notice trying on the shoe and using it a little bit in the last couple of days is that the version 11, I felt like around the heel collar, right where those top eyelets are, where the laces kind of go in through last, it kind of did not feel very, I feel like it didn't feel very good in the version 11. It was kind of too rough. Like they softened the hypo knit in the version 11 as opposed to the version 10, but the upper, they kind of added these weird little pieces to the eyelets up there to kind of maybe reinforce them. And I hate those things. They're like rubbing right on my ankle bones or malleolus, I don't know how to say, however you say that. It's been a while since I've been in anatomy. They kind of rub right there, and I've on the medial side of my ankle mainly, and it was really uncomfortable. I really didn't like it. I feel like it could break in, but nowadays shoes really shouldn't be breaking in. I mean, that's something that is a little concerning. I feel like we're gonna get some returns for that. We'll see kind of what people think about that overall. And I kind of have weird ankle bones, I guess. I mean, I feel that in like the Brooks Adrenaline. I feel that rubbing right there and stuff like that. So it's not just New Balance. It's not just this shoe. I feel in a lot of shoes, and something to maybe keep in mind if you have your ankle bones a little bit lower, as I was saying. All right, so kind of moving on and moving back to more of that heel counter. They have their Ultra Heel. I mean, again, these companies make up all these crazy names for their stuff. It's basically their technology names, and I'm just kind of addressing it as what it is actually called. But basically, we're talking about the heel counter with the Ultra Heel. And what that is basically, if you look at it, it's going to be a kind of like that cupped, the really rounded heel they have, that kind of comes in and heads back away from that Achilles. The idea of this heel counter, and it's very similar to the version 10. It did change a little bit. I feel like it's not as aggressive and doesn't really come away from the Achilles, and maybe they felt like that wasn't a very good stylistic choice. I feel like I have a lot of people like, what is this thing on the back of the shoe? I'm like, don't worry, that's actually to curve away from the Achilles. So I think they maybe took the hint and were like, oh, we probably shouldn't make this look as aggressive looking. But basically, the cup of the heel is supposed to really cup around that heel. And then the curving away from the Achilles is supposed to reduce the stress on the Achilles. So a lot of companies, I feel like, have realized or are kind of anticipating, or kind of what the research has kind of shown, is that the top of the like heel counter, that little piece, like very top, like right, that sits normally on your Achilles tendon back there, that attaches to your calves. That kind of digs into people's heels, and they were trying to curve that away. I think Nike kind of started that with the Pegasus 35. Maybe another shoe started before that, but that's kind of when it really became popular, was around the Pegasus 35. Now they're on the 37, so a couple years ago. But basically, that kind of curves away from the Achilles, reduces the stress, and then reduces the heel counter, or that fabric, from digging into the Achilles and kind of irritating it. So that's kind of the idea behind that. But I really like the 1080 in their heel counter. Like, that heel counter really snugs up around my foot. The one issue I found with it was with insoles or inserts or orthotic, but not, again, I don't even recommend using orthotics or insoles with this shoe. So if you don't use orthotics or insoles, then you'll be perfectly fine with the shoe. I feel like it really snugs up around the heel for most people. And most people have fit in the shoe have really liked that heel counter. But if we're looking at people who are wearing orthotics, I always get returns for that. And I just do not recommend, again, do not recommend wearing orthotics or insoles with this shoe. It just doesn't work out. It's not gonna be good in the end. All right, guys, that wraps up my review / preview of the 1080. I hope you all really enjoyed this and kind of got a good value out of it. Maybe it helps you I hope it helps you make your decision on whether you want to go the 1080 or not. Again, go get fitted. Make sure it's going to be right for you. What do you guys think of my little studio setup I have going here? Still a work in progress, but I will work on it more and more. This is actually, I don't like this wallpaper kind of design or this painting job, but that's why I kind of have this poster behind me. And it's a little bit old because this is definitely an old Triumph, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below of my kind of studio setup. I'm trying to make this a little bit more professional for all of you. And again, working on consistency. I'm going to be trying to posting more, but I'm not going to guarantee it. But yeah, we'll catch you guys. Oh, and if you guys enjoyed, definitely make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe. It'd be greatly appreciated. And we'll catch you guys later. Sorry about the lighting. Had a weird shadow the whole time. Again, still working on it. This is the first time I've actually used a studio setup, so bear with me. I'll catch you guys later.